Today we're going to be going over the tour in Shulchan Aruch in Shin Chaf Hey, Sif Yud, and Yud Aleph. Just some ha'aras we'll speak out on the tour. Everybody saw that for the tour in Shulchan Aruch, Beis Yosef. So we'll just speak out some ha'aras on these things. Okay, the tour in Yud, Goy Shemili Mayim Lebehemto Mibor Shehi Rishisa Yochid Rishisa Rabim Yochal Yisrael Hashkos Mehem Lebehemto. So the Goy filled up the water, presumably for himself. Then Yisrael could be mashke his behemoth with it. V'husha ein a Goy makiroi look at the Mecha Shem Yaber B'Shvilo. Just a ha'ara that the Torah did not mention the Tanai in the Gemara that it says Acharov Yisrael. This mashma that you need. Rashi says that if the Goy does it first and then the Yisrael, then it's nicker that was done l'shem the Goy himself. Mashenkin, if you switch the order around, so then there's no longer nicker that it really did it for the sake of the Goy. So it's hard to know if that means it becomes Maras Ayin, or if we just assume that if the Yisrael did it first, then Taka, we assume he did it for the sake of the Yisrael. That's why he let him do it first. The Torah doesn't mention this tonight. The emissaries in the Bir Halacha said that even Rashi that gave this stipulation that it's nicker, that it's for the sake of the Goy when the Goy used it first. That is not an ironclad Tanai, because if we know for sure, we have reason to know otherwise that the Goy for sure did it for himself. That even if suddenly the Goy changes his mind, he did it for himself, and then suddenly he sees a Jew that needs it and lets him use it, then as long as it's clear that it was done for the sake of the Goy, that it's still mutter as well. So maybe the Torah didn't see that it was so necessary to mention it. So it is a possibility, or maybe it's even nichlal in that it was done for himself, which that maybe it's kol of that. But in Sif Yud Aleph, the Torah does mention it. In Sif Yud Aleph, the Torah says, "Likad asavim l'tzorach behemto ma'achal achrav Yisrael." So there he does mention the Tanai of Achrav, as opposed to Sif Yud, that he never mentioned that. So okay, it's a little bit tzorach even why it was left out, why this Tanai is left out. But Al Kapanim, after he does mention it in Sif Yud Aleph, so I guess perhaps he's samach on the fact that it says it over there. But again, the Bir Halacha says that it's not an ironclad thing. It could be that a lot of these things are dependent upon if we know otherwise, if we know that that's the case. So the Torah goes on to say that im milei l'tzarach behemas Yisrael, if Yitaka did do it for the sake of Yisrael, asur l'chol minei tashmish. It's also for everything. So what does kol minei tashmish coming in kolo? So the Beis Yosef spoke out that there's tarti kamashvalon. He's saying two chidushim over here. Number one, don't think that it's only for the sake. It's only also for the Yisrael that he did it for. Lafuke and the other Yisrael, which we had a machlokas, Rishonim, the Ran, the Balamor. We spoke this out in previous shirim. When a goy does something for Yisrael, is it also just for that Yisrael, or even for Yisrael Acher? Tosus was machriya even for Yisrael Acher when it's a Nisr Deraisa. Every time they're over Nisr Deraisa, then it's also for Kol Yisrael, and so the Torah is being machriya like that shita. And secondly, don't think that it's only the shtia aser, that it was filled up for the sake of shtia. So don't think it's only for aser for shtia, for what was filled up for lafuke and the other types of tashmish that you want to suddenly use it for, which was not the original intention. So that also was a machlokas in Tosus, and the shita that wanted to be mekel, wanted to bring a raya from the Gemara in Yevamos that were matter the tinok v'tinokas to bring the keys that's in the Rishus Rabim. We see that there's a heter for other tzvachim that only the Chazal only asr the achila v'shtia. So they only asr if it was done for the whatever we can go into that raya. That's a little bit of a problematic raya, but that's what they. But that's the Rishonim want to say. Tosus is a cholok on that it's not a raya from there, because over there by tinok v'tinokes, so since they're ketanim, then we say that they had no das to b'chal. So it wasn't considered really for the sake of the Yisrael. They don't have das for that. They don't have enough das to create that isser. But if it is for the sake of the Yisrael with das by a goy that has a bar das, so then it's also a kol minei tashmish, and really doesn't matter what the what the tachlis was to begin with. It was nesar. Is perhaps you could say that this shita held that shita that's Mekel holds that since we see sodas of ikar v'tafel legabi the maisa, we always go after the ikar maisa, like at the end of the sugya, like we spoke out last time, that if the ikar was done for Yisrael or for, let's say, for a goy, even though it's also kolol Yisrael in it, but the ikar is for himself, for example. So then we always go after the ikar maisa. So maybe the shita held that not only do we go after the ikar maisa for the person, mitzad yikovea who it's for, but you also go after the ikar maisa for what it's for. And it was for the sake of shtia, since the ikar maisa was for drinking, so then other tzrachim are not going to be nichlal in the isser, perhaps. Possibly they're svara. Al kapanim tosis and the other Rishonim Mecholikan on the Torah's machriya the dinah, not that way. That that we don't look at the ikar v'tafel as only the gabe who it's done for, not the gabe what it's done for. As long as this water there was a malacha derais that was done in it, then it becomes nesar lakol, lakol Yisrael and the kol tashmish. And they brought a raya. Remember, we brought a raya from Tosus brought a raya from Kevish, and Tosus brought a raya from Kevish and Ner. We see that not only achila v'shtia is asur, but also walking down the Kevish or being nene from the Ner. That's not achila v'shtia. Those Rishonim could be docha that raya and say that sure, that's because the Kevish and the Ner were done for the sake of not achila. And I'm tiny, and we're saying that if water was done for achila v'shtia, then other tashvishim were not the ikar. But Tosus holds that he doesn't want to be machalik. It's interesting what the machlokas is in that nekuda. Al kapanim, that's the halacha over the Torah's by machriya. Okay, now then the Torah ends off though the vayidna she'en lan rishis rabin deraisa mutar la'acher shalom mila v'shula. Tosus was machal between isur derbanan and isur deraisa. If it's only an isur derbanan, so then it's also for the one it was done for, but not for kol Yisrael. That was Tosus chiluk. So the Torah says that today we don't have a shusab and deraisa, so then it's going to be mutter for kol. So what? Just to digress for a moment, that there are places in the world that do have a shusab and deraisa. They say like in Manhattan, etc. I don't know today, maybe no one's there anymore, but Manhattan, Olav Shalom, whatever they say. But that certain places have Rosh Hashanah and Deraisa, places in Japan, certain places in Europe, they have 600,000 people a day that travel through that area, and that we know that's the reason that Moshe was very machmir not to have an Erev in New York at all, because of the places in New York that are Rosh Hashanah and Deraisa, and Erev only works where there's a Rosh Hashanah and Derabanan. So there was a child of other places of being mufulash, being connected to the place where it's Deraisa. Al Kapanim road places today we don't have 600,000 people going through. It's only Rosh Hashanah Derabanan. Even though there are shitas that hold that there's machlokes Rishonim in over there in Erevin and in halacha that whether there's din Rosh Hashanah is telling 600,000 or it depends on the width of 16 amos wide in a street which is mafulish, which flows for a long time. So the 16 amos creates the Isser Deraisa. And there are those that are machmir because of that on themselves not to carry an Erev that has wide streets, even though they're not 600,000, but they want to be cautious for those who show them that it's totally in 16 amos. And it's very common in Yerushalayim that people are not samach on the Erev because of that. Many people are machmir for that. I was once discussing with the Rishon Zalman Zatzal, and I mentioned a lesson to him that I said those that are machmir l'chatchila not to carry. I was about to ask a shayla about that, and he stopped me in the middle and said you can't use the word l'chatchila by something which the Mishnah Berurah Paskin is not that way, because once Mishnah Berurah Paskin clearly that the din is 600,000 and not 16 amos, you can't use the word l'chatchila. You could say those that are machmir on themselves not to do it. You can't say those that hold l'chatchila. So I said, oh, okay, those that are machmir on themselves not to carry. And then I went on with the shaila. But it was a chashuv, mitzad sheni, just for carrot. I was once walking down on Shabbos with him, walking down the stairs after mincha, and he pointed to the streets of Shari Chesed and said, look, the streets in Shari Chesed were built less than 16 amos. So I said, wow, I can't believe that they managed to build the streets Shari Chesed according to halacha. They wanted to. He said, Mayesh, Elish Yas do it Shari Chesed Hayereim V'Shleimim. Let's say they call it shitot. Those that built Shari Chesed were Yereim V'Shleimim. They wanted to be, let's say, all the shitas. So they want to make sure the streets in Shari Chesed are less than 16 amos. So I asked him, does that include the sidewalks? So he thought for a minute and said, yes, that includes the sidewalks. Because Tzidi Rishus Rabim is Kishur Rabim, and so it's not altogether. So even though the halacha is like the Mishabura, but still there are those that were Yereim B'Shleimim that want the streets themselves not to even have a shaila on them. The tour of the halacha saying, now we don't have Rishus Rabim. The tour, for sure, the Ikar halacha is that it's told in 600,000, and therefore it's going to be mutar for acherim because it's only considered an Isur Rabbanan when it went from Rishus Yachid to Rishus Rabim, or vice versa, when you filled up that bore, from water from the bore. Okay, and then the Torah ends off with the Machlokes Rabbeinu Tam and the Re that was in Tosfos. He says, Rabbeinu Tam haya omer, hadas rinim b'mamale l'tzarach Yisrael, dafka lebehemto. It's only usher for his behema. Abahu atzmoi mutar behem. The person himself could be nana from it. Alapisha nismal b'shula. Even though it was filled up for his animal, still he can go himself, or even if it was filled mamish for him. Because the person himself, if it's down, the water's down in a bore, just like the goy went down to the bore to get it, so the Yisrael could also go down to the bore and get it himself. So it comes out that he wasn't nene so much from the fact that the goy brought it because he could get it himself by his behema that he couldn't bring down there. The behema can't go down to the bore, so then the klapi of the behema, he's nene from the water that's brought, and that's why it's asur lahashkos lebehemto. Mashen came for himself, then the Rebbeinu Tam holds, since you can go for yourself, you could go down yourself. That the goy didn't bring him so much hana. It wasn't marviach, something that he couldn't have done himself, and therefore there's no gzera on that. There's no isur hana on that for him. But the Re is cholak on that. You can't be machalak like that. So you have to understand what's the nukudas hamachlokas, the Re and the Rebbeinu Tam. What does this tell you on? So you could say that it depends on, we spoke out in the previous shirim of Machlos Rishonim, what is the getter, what is the understanding, what is the essence of the malacha, of the gzeira that Chazal were gozer, to be nene from that a goy did for you on Shabbos? Is it and straight up Isser Hana? There goes right in the getter, in the context, in the framework of an Isser Hana. It's just a straight Isser Hana. And we gave various reasons why they should be Osir B'Hana, in order that maybe you shouldn't take Shabbos lightly or whatever. So in order to keep Shabbos Chamar B'Eni Abrios, then they made it, if it go does something for you, they made it Osir B'Hana. Or is it a Gzera, the getter Gzera, that you might ask a goy to do it for you in the future? Either right now you might ask him right now to be Marba B'Shvilo, or you might ask him to do it again, or next Shabbos we saw some Rishonim said, might be next Shabbos. So we spoke about Amachos Rashi and Tosfos and Beitza about this point. So L'chora, at first glance, it was seen that would be the Machlokes Three and the Rebbeinu Tam over here. That if you hold that it's Begetter Gzeira, meaning that you were nene from it so much that you might ask him to do it again, Rebbeinu Tam holds that would be the Svar of Rebbeinu Tam, and he holds that that's only if something you could not have gotten yourself. Only then you're nene enough that you might come to ask him to do it again. Mashenkin, if you could have done it yourself, but derech heter, you could have gone yourself to get it. So you weren't nene so much from what the goy did, and now to ask the goy to do it, but derech iser, to ask him to be over an iser of a mir la'akum, for him to get him to do that when you could do it yourself easily. So we're not gozer that. We don't have to be gozer that. We don't have to be worried about that. The Re says that it's Asr. You could say he holds because he holds it's an Isser Hana. So therefore, it's even though the Shorish Isser Hana might have come to begin with from a Chashash, you might come to ask him, but once there goes it, so then it became Begetter Isser. Now it remains Begetter Gzer. I'm sorry, Begetter Isser Hana. that they made like a low plug kind of thing, that any malacha that was done Mr. Deraisa is a low plug. It's like an Isra Hana. So that would be the machlokas. The Re holds that even though over here maybe he's masking to the Svar of Rabbeinu Tam, maybe it's not considered such a big hana, but sof kol sof, if an Isra Deraisa was done with it, then it's asur b'hana. That's it. We don't look at whether he could have, couldn't have, doesn't matter. An Isra sof kol sof, an Isra hana, and an Isra malacha Deraisa was done in it. That would seem to be on the surface the machlokas, but you can't say that. That's the machlokas, because if we remember, this machlokas of Isra Hana or Gzeira was a machlokas in Beitza between Rashi and the Ri. Rashi held it was an Isra Hana, and that's why it just kept being nene from what was done on Shabbos. So therefore, Rashi held that if it's 2 days Yom Tov, you can wait Bechdei Shiyasu on Motzi Yom Tov Rishon, and that's enough not to be considered nene from Yom Tov. That was Rashi's svar of Isra Hana. And even though you couldn't have done it on the second day, but the Maisa, you're not nene from the first day anymore once you get after Bechdei Shiyasu. So on Yom Tov Sheni, you could already eat it. And Tosfos was cholok over there very strongly and held no, that since it's not a svar of Isra Hana, it's a svar of a Gzeira, and it was the name of the Ri, that it's a Gzeira, you might ask him to do it. So if you are being marviach from the fact that you can use it on the second day Yom Tov, then other times also you'll ask him on the first day Yom Tov in order to have at least for the second day. It's Beged Gzeira, not Beged Isra Hana. That was the svar of the Ri over there, and this is the same Ri we're talking about over here. So you can't say that the Ri is cholok on Rabbeinu Tam because he holds this Beged Isra Hana. That's Rashi's shita, and the Ri is cholok on that. So we have to say rather that the machlokes is not depending on Isra Hana or Gzeira. Both the Ri and Rabbeinu Tam both hold that it's a Gzeira. And that's why Rabbeinu Tam is mekel. If there's no makom to be gozer, you could do it yourself. But the Ri is holding either that it's just a low plug, it's a gzeir of a low plug. True, it might be that in this particular case, it's not such a big hana, you're not marviach that much. And maybe there wouldn't be such a room to be gozer. But we say it's for a low plug. We often find in Chazal low plug that we don't look at every specific case. Once we made the getter the gzeir is when Isra Deraisa is done. Generally speaking, we're worried that you might ask a guy to do it. So here also, even though it's a little less of a chashash, sof kol sof, it's a low plug, and Isra Deraisa was done, so we're still gozer the gzeira. Or else maybe the Ri holds that even though the Jew could do it, since it's a big tircha to do it, to start going down to a bore to drink, when right now you have the water right here, so then maybe just a balbatish is for that, as long as you're maviach the tircha, this tircha, then that's enough to be able to, it's enough to be choshesh that you're going to ask the guy to do it again for the sake of the tircha of not having to go down to the bore. So that's two possibilities of how to understand the machlokas. Okay, in la halacha, the fact that it's not clear from the Torah which way he's being machriya. He just brings down both shitas, but from the fact that he brings the Ri at the end, and also from the Rush, the source of the Torah is usually the Rush, and the Rush also both shitas, and it's not clear from the Rush either which way he paskins, but it's more mashma that he brings the Ri at the end. Also, that's the psak. So that seems the psak of the poskim is to go with the Ri, that as long as an Isra Deraisa was done in it, then even though it could have been done on his own, he could have done it on his own, we still say that it's asur. Now, that seems to be the achra of the Torah and the Beis Yosef. However, if you look in the Darkei Moshe, just a brief digression, just to say something which I'm sure everybody knows, but just in case there might be somebody out there, I don't believe there is, but just in case there might be, just to know that the Seder over here, we never really spoke it out. The Tur was the son of the Rush, so he's still in the middle stage of the Rishonim, early stage of the Rishonim. Beis Yosef was his parish on the Tur. Beis Yosef is Yosef Kara, who is the author of the Shulchan Aruch and the Darkei Moshe, which goes on the Torah and on the Beis Yosef. So Darkei Moshe was written by Moshe Isserlis, who is also the author of the Ramah. So just make sure we know who we're talking about. So Darkei Moshe brings down, in the name of the Kolbo, that even though the Torah is mashma and the Beis Yosef that the halacha is like the Revi that we're machmir over here. Even if you could have done it yourself, we're still asur. But he brings it in the name of the kolbo, also an early Rishon, that we're knowing lahakel up here ben tam. So if a goy brought it in a way that the Jew could have done it, then it would be mutter. And then the Ramah goes further, the Darkei Moshe goes further and says, "V'achshav nogu lahakel lomar legoy letinok lavi laholich derech rishus rabim she'enon rishus rabim gemura." Today we're more even more meko even lechatchila to ask a tinok or a goy to bring something through the rishus rabim since it's only rishus rabim derabanan. And he says it's proper to be machmir on that because many poskim in Shin Zayin Aser Amir Al-Akam even by an Issa D'Rabbanan. So the fact that it's D'Rabbanan doesn't just make it mutter. So someone's machmer tabala bracha, and also and furthermore he brings the Maril that says there had been a tam that's mekel. If you could do it yourself, ben tam was only mekel b'di'evid if the goy already did it. The ben tam never meant to say that you could do it l'chatchila. Even so, the Ramah says that those that are mekel for Amir la'akum b'makom mitzvah, if it's makom tzarech mitzvah or docha gadol or it's a case of great need, so then yes, they have who to rely upon, and they have who to rely upon. Which the way the Ramah seems to understand that kolbo is that he's matzah even l'chatchila. So the Darkei Moshe seems to understand that it's a machlokes the kolbo and the maril whether Rabbeinu Tam meant what he said, that if you could do it yourself, then it's mutter even l'chatchila or only b'di'evid. And the minig seems to have gone more like the kolbo, that there are many that are matzah even l'chatchila. So Ramah says, don't rely on that stam, but only rely on that makom mitzvah or makom tzara gadol. So we'll speak more about that in a few minutes about the pratim of that thing. What the Ramah also mentions over here that there's another heter, important heter, which also ties to Rabbeinu Tam, and it seems to indicate that there's also a ruach and halacha like Rabbeinu Tam, even l'chatchila, and that is he quotes in Siman Shin Zayin back in you'll see over there it's the beginning of Shin Zayin. In the name of the Ravya, the Beis Yosef and the Bach bring over there in the name of the Ravya, which the heter is based on, that if there's a way to do something, b'derech heter, if something can be done in a way which is mutter, then you're allowed to ask a goy to do it, even though the goy is going to do it b'derech iser. It's a very, very foundational yisod in halacha. Something that a Jew could do b'derech heter, so you can ask a goy to do it, even though the goy chooses to do it b'derech iser. So over there, the case was in Shin Zayin that you have something in a Rishus Rabin, you want to bring it to a Rishus Yachid, so you could theoretically create a mechitza shel b'nei adam around it. Then that becomes like a Rishus Yachid, and then you carry the chayv, less than Dalad Amos, like a step at a time, and you continue to have like people lined up all through the Rishus Rabin, all the way up until the Rishus Yachid. So it's considered like you're just taking it from Rishus Yachid to Rishus Yachid. Not the easiest thing in the world to do, but you can make. It's called mechitza shel b'nei adam. You can form a mechitza like that of people standing around it to move it that way. So since we find over there that yisod that if something can be done with derech heter, you could ask a goy to do it with derech iser. So then he's mitzaref that to asking a goy to do it over here to carry the stuff if it's tzorach mitzvah or whatever through its rabim, because there is a way the Jews could have done it also with derech heter. So that's another tziruf of how to be asking the goy to do such a thing in l'chatchila. That would then mean that that this heter would only apply. This would only apply where there are cases that a Jew could do a heter, such as carrying Rishus Rabim to Rishus Yachid. You could create one big Rishus Yachid. Masha'enken, let's say Bishol or other malachas, there's no way that a Jew could have done it. Then this heter would not apply to Amir L'Akum to turn that into l'chatchila, because there's no way for a Jew to do a derech heter.
Rebbe, in today's day and age, with Shabbos timers and stuff, would that also potentially be derech heter, or because the Jew can potentially do something before Shabbos, activate the timer, and then even though like the Jew doesn't turn on Shabbos, that it still turns on Shabbos. Is there any nafkamina or not really?
Yeah, that's not called a Jew doing it for derech heter. That's called nobody did it. There has to be something that a Jew could do now on Shabbos for derech heter to ask a goy to do it, to have a heter to ask a goy to do it. That's, for example, just like a common example of that is if you have your cleaning lady that comes, she comes on Shabbos also, and she's cleaning up the dishes. So that you're allowed to ask her to do the dishes, even though you know she's going to do it with hot water, and you could not have done it with hot water, but you could have done it with cold water. You could have washed the dishes, could have been washed. There's a derech heter for us to wash the dishes, and therefore, if the fact that she's doing it with hot water, that's a dated enough shay. She's doing it for her own sake. It's better for her, or easier for her to do it that way, or nicer for her. But that's mutter because you have a derech heter. Now the Taz speaks out of it here that on the Ramah brings this heter down, that he brings the Darkei Moshe, he brings it down in Shulchan Aruch. There are those that are matar l'chatchila, and this yesh matirim, the tzolch and Rabbeinu Tam. So the Taz says yesh matirim means derech karmelis, if it's carried through a rishus rabban d'Rabbanan, a karmelis. And so the Chornim will point out that that's tamua, the gra, and others point out that this heter that we're talking about over here to be solchan on the Rabbeinu Tam is not talking just about Isser D'Rabbanan. He's talking about the etzem sugya, the Yermalim Bor from Rishus Yachid to Rishus Rabbin, which is talking about their Isser D'Raisa. So the Yesh Lismoch, those that are matir is Bisamachan Rabbeinu Tam, we're talking over here even D'Raisa, not like the Taz. That's what the Gra says, and that's but so it's not such a nafkamina la'alacha because the Mishnah Brura writes that it's 2 days in Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch first brings down like the Tur and like the Beis Yosef Machriya that the halacha is like the Ri. There is no heter Rabbeinu Tam, and the Ramah brings that there's this heter, and the Mishnah Brura says that came out all the Rishonim are machmir like the Ri, not like Rabbeinu Tam. So that's the Ikar halacha. So he says maybe it's not such a big nafkamina, but and also the Sha'ar Tzion brings a long list of Rishonim that are machriya this way, the Sha'ar Tzion and Nun Gimel. But the Mishnah Berurah himself, after the whole list of poskim he brings, still he says l'tzorach gadol, l'tzorach Shabbos, like the Ramah himself said at the end, that there's makom lahakel. So l'tzorach gadol, l'tzorach Shabbos might be he brings there that the Mishnah Berurah brings that you don't have your hot food. Your hot food all got somehow, I don't know, there was an Erev and it fell down or something like that. I don't know, whatever the case might be. Or there's nowhere to put the hot food up where you're going to be eating. You got to put it in a house next door and there's no Erev there. So ask a goy to bring it. That would be considered certainly the Tzorach Shabbos and the Tzorach Gadol. So then you could ask a goy to bring that chunt over to the other house without an Erev. So there's enough. Here will be the nafkamina. Since the Mishnah Berurah is saying with Tzorach Gadol, the Tzorach Shabbos, you could be someone kind of Rabbeinu Tam. So then the heter to ask the guy to bring the cholent then would be, even if it's a Rishus Rabbin Gemara, even if you live in Manhattan, when it's in its full glory, and 600,000 people are there, even so there would be heter to ask a guy to bring the cholent over to the house. And Bifrat, says the Mishnah Berurah, says the Sha'ar Tzion, Bifrat, Rishus Rabbin Shalanu, the Tzorach Gadol or the Tzorach Shabbos, which is only D'Rabbanan, then certainly it could be Samach and Rabbeinu Tam. So that's an important psak. We're just going to go through a few other ha'aras on the Shulchan Aruch that are important ha'aras on these halachas. Now this halacha we spoke about in Makiro. The Makiro is Asar. Shulchan Aruch brings this down. Magen Avram said the Magen Avram brings down, and it's brought in the Mishnah Berurah and Nun Aleph, that is Asar by Makiro, even Shalol Lefanav, we say that we're not Machalik. We spoke out in last year that the Shulchan Aruch is going, and the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch are going like the Shittas that it's a Machlokes Abaya and Rava. And Rav is cholakan a bias for of lefanav lo lefanav, and rather it's all telling one thing, whether it's makira or not. And that's the psak of the Shulchan Aruch. So the Magen Avraham brings down from postgame, and Mishnah Berurah quotes it that this iser, that it's usher, but makiro by something which you could be marba b'shvilo, that's only if the goy knows that the Yisrael needs this malacha. It's the source of this is the Magen Mishnah, and that's the psak of the Mishnah Berurah and the Magen Avraham. So if the goy has no idea that there's a Jew there that needs it, so he brings it, and it's a davar sheyesh, like he brings water or something that you can be marba. He brings it for himself, and suddenly he finds out that there's a Jew there that he knows, but he had no idea that he's there, or he had no idea that he needs it, and suddenly he finds that out. So the Shas Malacha, he had no idea the Jew needed it. So then, in that case, there's no gzera there's no chumrah of makiro, because there's no way he could have done it for him. Okay, now another nakuda that in the Heter of the Ramah, based on Rabbeinu Tam, that if you can get there yourself, then it's mutar if you could have got there yourself. If you're not able to get there yourself, then it's usher according to that. And Mishnah Berurah says that even if be'etzim you could get there, there's no isser for you to get there. It's just right now because let's say it's dangerous to go on the streets. It's in the middle of the riots or something like that, and the guy brought it, so you don't want to walk through the streets. The riots going on. So sakanas hadrachim. You're thinking of who today? How could it be sakanas hadrachim in America? Well, there could be. I saw cars trying to turn and try to go through the streets, and they got surrounded by the people, and they started banging the car and everything like that. There could be sakanas hadrachim. So the goy brought it then, even though you could theoretically get there and you could drink yourself and everything. There's no isser of Shabbos to get there, but there's some sakana or some other reason why you can't get there now. I don't know if your leg hurts or whatever. Then the heter falls off. It's not considered that you can get there. So in any way, even though you could get there inside Hilchos Shabbos, but there's technical reasons why you can't get there. The technical reasons also make it that it's usher. That's what comes out from the Mishnah Berurah says. I guess you could say this. The svara is that right now the Maisa you are nene from it. If the svara is you can't be nene from what the guy did, and you're not nene so much if you could have got there yourself. If the Maisa you can't get there right now, so then it's called nene. Okay. Another nakuda here, the kula of the Ramah, the B'Somchan, the Makilim, that sometimes even Chatchila, B'Makom Tzarech, when he says only Melchim Tzarech Gadol or Tzarech Shabbos, Mishnah Berurah and Sivkat and Samach says that the time that we're to be machmir altogether, why are we machmir in general, is because the heter of shvus to shvus by Amir La'akum, which shvus will mean a double Isser Rabbanan, the Amir La'akum is Isser Rabbanan, and we're talking about Chil Shabbos Rabbanan, so that's called shvus to shvus. So then that is, we're not just, that's just not a blanket heter. We're only matter shvus to shvus, a Malkam Tzorah Gadol or a Malkam Mitzvah, like L'Tzorah Shabbos. So the Mishnah Berurah says, in important words, Kagon, L'havi HaMashke L'Tzorah Kiddush, or Meichal HaCham She'echen L'Suda Shabbos. Let's say you forgot the wine. You have a kiddush. There's no wine to make kiddush. It's at another house. So then that would be considered Malkam Tzorah Gadol Tzorah Shabbos. Or if you're about to eat your suda, and like we mentioned before, you don't have the cholent for it. I remember many years ago it was an interesting ma'isa that somebody did sort of an experiment, like a halachic experiment, and I don't remember all the details of it, but I remember that people walked around using this as a test for how much do you know your poskim? Do you so somebody, the shaila was, they asked the number of poskim that if you're making a kiddush and there's at the kiddush you're supposed to have crackers, you have herring and all the usual kiddush stuff and cholent. But the cholent is in someone else's house and there's no eruv. So and you have this big kiddush, but there's no cholent there. So can you ask a goy to bring the cholent from the house without an eruv? They supposedly asked Rabbi Yoshev. They asked. That's all they asked Rabbi Nassan Gestetner. That's all the Lahoros Nassan. Rabbi Yoshev was a Katal Litvak. Rabbi Nassan Gestetner was a Varma Chassid. And they asked the third also, and I don't remember who the third one was. And like you were supposed to be able to, to determine who would say what. And I remember then getting it right. I forgot who the third one was. Like that's many years ago, but it was obvious to me, and that's what they actually said. Rabbi Yoshev, there's other food, so you do it without a shalom. Who says you need a shalom for kiddush? So and Rabbi Gestetner, the Chassid, how can you have a kiddush without a shalom? That's not a kiddush, They so of course it's a tzara gadol. So the Ma'aseh, the Lashon Mishnah Brura in Samach Beis, he says that it's only a heter b'dvarim shehu sheyehi b'dochak tzas bil adam. You're considered a little bit b'dochak without having it. So I guess around that will come the svara. Like Rabbi Yoshe, what are you b'dochak? It's not enough for you to have crackers and herring. Who eats more than that anyway? So you don't want to have children. But Rabbi Nassan, a kiddush without a children. That's your bedochak. People aren't going to have a geshmak, and it won't be netted from it. So that's like there was a machlokas and psak in that case. Everybody would agree, though, based on that Mishnah Brura, that if just missing dessert, so okay, you're missing the cake, whatever. So then that I think everybody would agree would not be b'chlal this heter, unless the generation might have changed. I don't know, but. Or I guess you could say you can't have your cake and eat it too in this case. So eat it somewhere else. I remember once talking to David Cohen, we had a certain event. It was going to be a shal of kiddush, and I forgot exactly the issue was that we were going to have we need to have food first, and I forgot exactly what the case was. But no, actually, it wasn't on Shabbos. It was just an event. Was going on, and we had to have food, and there was a question of brachas and moving, and I was talking to David Cohen about it. So he said, what's the problem? You'll have the tea and cake over there, and you'll have the Shuir over there. And I said, the Rebbe needs to know today it's not tea and cake, it's pizza and beer. So he said, so sein pizza mit beer. So the generations change. Okay, now the etzem din of Rabbeinu Tam, that if you could do it yourself, then there's no isser of being netted from it afterwards. The Magen Avraham brings an Ois Chav Daled in the name of the Ola Shabbos. He really takes this further and says that even if a goy taka filled it from a Rishus Yachid to Rishus Rabbim in a place you couldn't get there, because for whatever reason you couldn't get there, and the goy brought you the water, if you have a river within the tchum, you have another place you could have gotten water, it's also mutter, because you're not really netted from it, because you could have gotten water in some other way. That's a tremendous kula that until now we understood Rabbeinu Tam to mean that if the goy could have done this malacha himself, so then it's not considered netted from that malacha so much, and that's why Rabbeinu Tam was mekel. But the Ola Shabbos is taking it even much further. He's saying that even if you could not have done that malacha yourself, but you have another way to get water, that's also enough. That's also considered that you weren't really netted from it. Tremendous kula. Magen Avraham is cholak on him, and says that it's not true. It's only if it can be netted from only you could have done that malacha itself. And the Ola Shabbos wants to bring a raya from the Rush, because the Rush, who's cholak on Rabbeinu Tam, or they ask kashas on Rabbeinu Tam, and if you could have done it yourself, Rabbeinu Tam holds the Rush is ask a kasha on him and says, "Otu, you're going to say that if a goy brings you a nair, you're sitting in a dark room, and a goy brings you a nair and brings it into the room, you happen to have a nair in another room. So if you the Rush asks according to Rabbeinu Tam, are you going to say that since if you could have gone to another room and read over there in the other room with that nair, maybe you can be netted from this nair in this room? That was one of the kashas on the Rush. So the Magen Ram learns that Ola Shabbos, it is the raya that Master Shekel speaks it out. The raya of the Ola Shabbos is from that kasha of the Rosh Anu Ben Tam. That we see that the Rosh understood in Ben Tam that is, even if you couldn't have done this malacha, but if you still could get the Hanan in another way, then it's nichlal on the heter of Ben Tam. And the Magen Ram's Cholak on him holds that the Rosh never really meant the Ben Tam, holds that. It's like a rhetorical question. Because it's saying that if you take what you're saying to the nth degree, then this could even come out. It's almost like that come out, and that can't be. So the Rosh never meant the Rebbein Tam really holds that, and he says, Atu, are you going to say that if a goy brings you Paris, the Isser that we have in Tafkuf Tesvav, we saw the Gemara in Beitza, that if a goy brings you Paris from Mechuber, the Davar Shesh Mechuber brings Chutzot Chum, we asked her because maybe the goy did the malacha and took the Paris off on Shabbos, he picked them on Shabbos. Are you going to say that it's only also for someone who doesn't already have Paris? He brings you apples, and it's a straight halacha that it's usher without any stipulations, and you're going to say that that's Isser is only going to be if you don't happen to have any apples, but if you already have a few apples in your fridge, then you're allowed to eat those apples because you had a few yourself anyway. That's not considered hana. No, that can't be. It has to be that there's a malacha you could have done yourself. That malacha, not you happen to have another way to be nena on the side. So it has to be that you could have been mamalef from the same bore, not that you could have gotten water in some other side way. And the Mishnah Berurah Nun Hey, he just brings down. He doesn't bring the whole back and forth. He just sows them like the Magen Avram. So we're not making like this Ola Shabbos. Even the heter of Ben Tam, the Tzarech Gadol and everything like that. That's only if you could have done it yourself. That malacha itself, b'derech heter. Okay, going over to Sif Yud Aleph. Do we have any more time still? Or, okay, we have a few more minutes. In Sif Yud Aleph, we have the this halacha of liket asavim in the Torah, the tzarech behemto, Michael Achrav Yisrael. So similar halacha to the water is also asavim. Imein makiro, you're allowed to feed your animal only if the goy does not know you. Aval imakiro also. Anything that there's Shem Yabba B'Shilo, same thing. There's no chasha that, like he's madlik a near la'atzmo or a kevesh, then it's mutter. So now the Magen Avram is murder that this halacha would hard not apply according to Ben Tam, at least in the Kula of Ben Tam. The Torah doesn't speak this out. He only spoke it out before, but not in this halacha. But he just points out that according to Ben Tam, if the animal could have eaten himself on its own, then it should be mutter to be Michael, to Yisrael. So Makom Shasat Chak and Makom Shasat Chak, if the animal could have done it, and now let's say Tsar Ba'alechayim, whatever. Right now, if you don't let him eat, so then you should be able to feed your animal Makom Tsar Ba'alechayim if the animal could have eaten himself. However, he brings from the Balamor, that's only in a case where the animal, where there's a lot of grass in the pasture, b'shefa, there's plenty of grass that the animal could have grazed himself and eaten himself. Because in a place with just sporadic, sparse vegetation, and the animal couldn't have eaten himself, and you would have had to probably take him from place to place for a long time to be able to eat his kadei svia and all that he needs. And that's why they're gathering the grass over here, so then the Heter Ben Tam would not apply. So it has to be always, like we're seeing these halachas are not just, they have to be practically possible, not just possible. Okay, now again in the Mahos we spoke about many times whether there's a Heter Shalobo Fanav, Abaya's Heter, whether Rav is Mecholik on Abaya or not. So here also the Torah just goes with Rava. It doesn't mention anything about Shalobo Fanav. As long as he's Makiro, he says that it's Asr. Now the Bir Halacha says that even though there are many Rishonim He has a long list of Rishonim, like we spoke out last year, that say like the Rashba, that the Rashba was the Aviyah Shita that Rava agrees with the Baya, and he's just adding a heter of Ner Le'echad Ner Le'meya, that he agrees that there's a heter Shalom B'fanav. There are many Rishonim like that. Even so, he says that since Tosfos in Beitza Paskin like the Tosefta, and said that it's usher if a goy cooks, or if they fried this kind of salty fish, for himself, he's still usher for a Yisrael, even though it wasn't done for him at all. He didn't know anything about him. Still can't be netted from it because Shema Yarbe B'Shvilo, Shema Yavakish Menu Shabbos Haba. Maybe you'll ask him in the next Shabbos to do it. So then this whole heter of Shalom B'Fanav totally falls off, because the case of the goy frying it, the fish, is Shalom B'Fanav. And Tosfos is Nachman in that case to the Tosefta, and the Rishonim bring that down. So therefore, we don't, even though many Rishonim hold, like the Rashba, that Rava agrees to Abaya, the heter Shalom B'Fanav, we see from Tosfos and the Rosh, and those that bring that halacha down, the Tosefta, we see not that way. And like we said last week, the Nekudas of Machlokas is, are we choshesh only for this Shabbos? You might ask them to do something within the realm of what you might do right now on this Shabbos, to be marabeh, whatever, for the Jew. That we're talking about this Maisa that was done now, and within this Maisa done now, there's enough community between Lefanav and not Lefanav. But Lagave next Shabbos, there's not enough community, Lefanav or not. As long as the Jews nene from what the Goy did, then you might ask them to do it the next Shabbos. So that's why we can't be Mekel like the Shitas. Now, the Magen Avraham says, though, that even though we're saying a chumrah of Lo Lefanav, that doesn't help. So the fact that we're going to Tosefta of Shabbos Haba tells us tells us this chumrah that we have to be concerned about. So Lo Lefanav, still, there are a number of kulas the Magen Avraham speaks out that come out as well. Number one, in Chav Ches, the Magen Avraham says that since this is the Sforah that you might ask him next Shabbos, he says that the only thing that will be usher will be something like the case of the Tosefta of Dag Maliach, the case of Tosfos Dag Maliach, the salty fish, which is something which is commonly used week after week. It's something that people do all the time. Only such a thing, since people do it all the time, and the Jew himself, just like he needs it this week, he might need it next week. So then such a thing, there's a makom to be gozer. You might ask the goy to do it next Shabbos. Mashenkin, something which is just a thing that people do just from time to time, and don't commonly do, such as, let's say this week the goy wove himself a sweater, and people that weave sweaters every day or every week, and then now the Jew wants to be nender from that sweater the goy made on Shabbos. So then that would be mutter, because there's no chash. You might ask the goy to weave you a sweater next Shabbos. It's not the kind of thing people do, need all the time or do all the time. So such a thing would be mutter. He says shasa goy beged pishtan b'Shabbos. If you made a special beged on Shabbos, then there's no gzera. You might ask him to do that again next Shabbos if you use the beged now. Another kula says in Magen Avraham that we're only choshesh that the goy, if you renege from what the goy did now, is something that we have this Tanai over here. It's only something that Shema Yarba Bishvili, that he might do more for the Jew. While he's already doing it for himself, he might do a little more for the Jew. What is Yarba Bishvilo in the Gemara? The goy is already doing it for himself, but he might add more asavim or more water for the Jew. And on that halacha, we're saying that we're worried about next Shabbos, not this Shabbos. So the Magen Avraham says that if that's the case, then we're only concerned about something which the goy himself might be doing for himself and add for the Jew. We're not concerned that he might ask the goy to do something solely for himself, because the whole hana that he had to begin with was as a tosefes hana. It was only like the lesson of the Gemara of Yarbe B'Shulo. So only something that the goy might also do again next Shabbos for himself and add for the Jew, only that we're choshesh for. Mashenkin, let's say to be nene from the kevish, he made this Shabbos, or the ner. So we're not concerned that he's going to, if the goy lit it for himself and then the Jew's nene from it, that's mutter, because there's no malkum that will be marba for the Jew. There's no issue being marba, and to think that he's going to do it, just ask the Jew to do it. Like if he's nene from the kevish the goy did for himself, to ask the goy to make another kevish next Shabbos, mechatesi he'll do it. The goy only did it to begin with for himself. That's why there's no isser by a kevish or a ner the echad ner lamea. Masha'enkin, where our goes are, it's only when a goy might do it for himself and be marbe for the Jew. So I think there's a strong raya for this Magen Avram. He doesn't bring any rayas, but I think there's a strong raya from Mineo Bey, from the Gemara itself, from the way that the Gemara brings down this chumrah, that according to the Rishonim that Rava is cholek on Abaya. Let's make a calculation in the sugya. According to the Rishonim, that Rava is cholek on Abaya, and like the Ran, I'm sorry, like all the Rishonim that we quoted. So, and there's no heter of Shlo B'Fanav. And the whole chash is, like we said, is Shem Yargilu Shabbos Abba, like the Tosefta. Okay, so that's the Hanacha, right? Rav is Cholkan Abaya. The Isser is we're concerned about next Shabbos. So why is there also a Tanai Shem Yarba B'Shilo? Like, what does Ribu we have to do with asking him next Shabbos? Just say we're worried about next Shabbos. Period. If you did it this Shabbos, you might ask him to next Shabbos. So why would the Gemara only say it by something Shem Yarba B'Shilo? Bal Krochach, those Rishonim have to be learning that if there's a Tanai of Shem Yarba B'Shilo, that the only chash is that he'll be marba for him next week. There is no chash. He'll do a specific malacha just solely for the sake of the Yisrael. So anything that has a din of ner le'echad, ner le'mea to it, and that's the way the guy did it, there's no svara to say that he'll ask him to do it next week, because he was never marba for the Jew this time either. If he was marba for him now, he might be marba for him next time, or something at least you could be marba for him, then he might ask him for it next time, next Shabbos. But it's something that you can't be marba at all, like a ner le'echad, ner le'mea, then there's no macham for a chash. I think it's also a shtukol raya from the beginning of the sugya also that it says a few times Sheva Yafush Yisrael. Lashon Yafush, also there, he might be add on for the Yisrael. Why worry about adding on? Just say that the Jew might ask him next week. But again, the chash is only Sheva Yafush. The chash is only something which he could have added on for you now. You might ask him to do it when he does it for himself next week to add on for you as well. So that's a big kula in this shita of you might ask for the next week. Okay. One more kula. The Magen Avram says, a very interesting kula. He wants to say that the chumrah he wants to say that in this chumrah of makiro, there were machmer to say that if he's makiro, it's also to be nana from it. The Jew can't be nana from it. So the Magen Avram says that even though you can't be nana from it, so the goy, let's say he was likat asavim, and he's makir the Jew, so the Jew, you can't be nana from it. The Magen Avram says that applies only to Shabbos itself, but there is no isser of b'chdei yasu on that. Because you're not actually coming to be you're not, if the Isser was you're being nene from what the Goy did, and that's what's also, then Anahami, there'll be a problem with B'chdesh Yasu. Masha'enken, over here, what the Goy did, he really did it for himself. We just have a chashash, Shema, you'll be Mosef and be Margil, or you might ask him in the future. So on that, it's only a chumrah shemer yaber b'shula. You weren't actually netted from it. There's no isra hana be'etzem. There's no isra hana be'etzem. Therefore, there's also no gzera of b'chtei shiyasu on Motzei Shabbos. So therefore, all these things that are usher in this sugya because of makiro are only usher on Shabbos. They're mutter miyad on Motzei Shabbos. Follow? That's the kula that I'm going to run. Ricky Vager has a big time on that. Ricky Vager says, even though the svara makes sense, but Ricky Vager doesn't ask on svara, but he says, you see the Gemara before it's not that way. Because, what do you see from the Gemara? The Gemara says, Toshma, Irish Yisrael v'nochem darim b'soicha. Vaisabam merchatz, marchetzes b'Shabbos. Right, we had one of the rayas we brought for Abaya and Rava was the merchatz that's heated up on Shabbos. And we said in Rov Nachmei mutar lerchatz ba miyad Rov Yisrael yamtin uteshi yecham uchama. And the Gemara wanted to learn that Rov Yisrael has a din of makiro. That's the chumrah of Rov Yisrael, and it makes it like makiro, which just like makiro, where Choshish the Goy did it for the Yisrael, also Rov Yisrael, where Choshish that the Goy did it for the Yisrael. So it has a din of makiro. And Rashi said it's a kasha on everybody. But the Maisa, the Gemara, the Bryce says beferish that if it's Rov Yisrael, then they have to yamtim b'chteishi yichamu chamin. They have to wait till Motzei Shabbos, the amount of time it would have taken to heat up the water. And only then can the Jews go in, if it's Rov Yisrael. So you see the Farish in the Brisa, and the Gemara that's bringing it down for the din of Makiro is Mefurish in the Brisa. You have to wait b'chtei shiyasu. And Rashi says the shichamu chamin. Rashi says shelo yene b'mashi hikdim alachem b'Shabbos v'chem b'chol ma'aser Shabbos nasu nachamin shir landim b'erev b'chtei shiyasu. That's mamish the din b'chtei shiyasu. So you see the Farish in the Gemara that the din of Makiro answers it even also to b'chtei shiyasu, not just on Shabbos itself. Masha Peladika Kasha on the Benutam. So I don't have an answer for that. Soraki and Gadol, I'm not going to run. I don't know how he learns that Gemara. I'll upon him. So if, now according to Rikveger, which we don't have an answer for, the man run is with Chorat. We do have to be machmer or pashtus till Motzei Shabbos till b'chtei shiyasu, even by this din of Makiro. Okay, a lot of stuff.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi.
Two small halachas in Shulchan Aruch, but look what's in it. I once heard from Rishon Zalman one time, told me that you see this time and time again, but it's a sort of fascinating story that after I finished the Sefer Yom Tov Sheni, so then I wrote another kuntras hasafas to it. I spoke to him a lot afterwards. And a lot of new shilas came out and everything, and I put out a new kuntras. A lot of things that he was mosif and corrections and so on and so forth. And after that, then in the meantime, a lot more new shilas came out. People kept asking new shilas, and I discussed them with him, and he gave the answers, and so I wrote it all down. So I wanted to put out a new edition and want to put all those new things in, because a lot of those things were amazing new psakim from him. So I brought it over to him, and so to look over like I would for the Sefer, and like he would always look everything over. So he got very upset at me. He said, I understand. He said, I understand you did a first new edition, to added all the things in. That's good. A person should always do that. But you're going to add more and more and more things to Yom Tov Sheni. He said, you think you're going to finish it? You think you're going to finish Yom Tov Sheni? So he said, if the Mishnah Berurah would put every shaila he had in the Mishnah Berurah, he said, Mishnah Berurah would be like this. Nobody would be able to learn it. It would be huge. He said, let me tell you something. He said that the Torah is nitzchi. We know the Torah is nitzchi. The Torah is infinite. He says, what does it mean Torah is infinite? Not just that the Torah in general is infinite. He said, every halacha in Torah is infinite. There's no way to even finish one halacha in the Torah, because it just goes, every single halacha in Torah is infinite. So he said, so you think you're going to finish Yom Tov Sheni? He said, let me tell you something. even if you and your children and your grandchildren, I took that as a bracha, will spend their whole lives doing nothing but Yom Tov, you still won't finish it because the Torah is infinite. And even those 3 halachas in Shulchan Aruch Yom Tov, still it's infinite. Taka came out, now it's a 600-page plus sefer. So, and from those 3 halachas. So he said, so leave Klal Yisrael, let them think alone a little bit. You wrote enough, and go now and work on something else. That was his. At the end, I pushed those papers on him, and he took them anyway. And I got those. He went over that, so I got that too. So I got the Vort and the halachas. But the Yisod is amazing. It's incredible Yisod that every halacha in Torah is infinite, is nitzchi, and there. So we see that a little taste of that. Seeing 2 halachas here, and what's behind it, how much there is, how many Yisodas are in, and how much of Shas and halacha and Rishonim are behind it, and then all these, and then post the halacha, post the Magen Avraham and the Mishnah Berurah, and all the different things that come out of just 2 halachas in Shulchan Aruch. So you taste a little bit of the nitzchias of Torah and such a thing. All right, have a great Shabbos. Kol Tov.